let's get to the actual walkthrough, all right? Welcome now to just the walkthrough. One thing to be aware of for this walkthrough is I am not going to be teaching a specific step route. We're doing the step route that Zeal got the 633 with, and that he created the step route, got 633 with it. We're going to be using that step route. I'm going to be talking about it, like I'm going to call out when I do it, and we might even show it on Big Shoes a little bit, but I'm not going to spend too much time, like, the focus of this tutorial is not that step route. It's everything else, including how to do a step route. So there you go. Very first thing you do in this game is you open the menu. Right after this text box, get into that menu. You can just hold triangle, right? As you hit circle to clear the text box, just start holding triangle. When you're on fields, if you're holding triangle, the menu will open as soon as it can. First menu is to go into your configs. We need to set some things up for the speedrun. First thing is window color is your preference, but you know, fastest is to leave it default. Controller, same thing. You can customize this if you want. Like, if you really need to get in here and change something, you may. But it would be fastest to just learn the default controls and not have to do that. Now we get into some required options, though, all right? So for me, I just go right down to cursor. You need cursor memory. And ATB is going to change a lot throughout the game. For now, put it to active, because active is what we want at the start of the game. This is going to change a lot, though. Battle speed, battle message, and field message. No surprise, you're going to want all three of these on fast, all the way fast. And now you could be done. Camera angle is as well optional. You may have it on auto, you may have it on fixed. Some runners do one, some do the other. Fixed is generally slightly safer in this one, in a fringe case. Fixed is safer. Personally, I play on auto. And then this don't change. So what that is then is, so you go into the menu, 3 up, you know, wrap the menu around, 3 up to config, 3 down to cursor, right down, left, and then just boom, boom, and then you go. At this point, you run a little bit forward. This guard has 2 potions. You don't have to face him. If you just run straight forward, you can grab, as long as you're in kind of the right spot, you can grab the potion by only running forward. And he's got 2, so you can grab 2 potions and then run directly forward, and you'll get into a fight with 2 dudes. Now, in this game's battles, this battle you cannot escape from. Normally R and L runs away, but you can't escape from this one. So you can actually hold circle in this game, and it auto just selects every item on the, or every, you know, the option on the menu that your hand cursor is on, which is why cursor memory is so important later. But there you go. For the results screen, you can actually use the D-pad to get past this screen. So spinning the D-pad can be faster on the first screen, but then you want to circle on this one. But there you go. So now it's time to briefly talk about your different movement options. So the reason that I said to move specifically only forward here is because what you can do to get out of this screen on a consistent fraction is to only move forward, and then you get into this fight, and then out of this fight, you just buffer up and left. You know, you just buffer up left, and you will always leave this screen on fraction 96. If you are attempting the battle skip on the first battle, you're going to need to leave that room on the same fraction every time. Otherwise, the battle is going to trigger on an inconsistent place if your fractions are inconsistent getting there. So that's why the movement there, for me, is straight forward into the fight and then straight up and left. Now, let's say that you didn't buffer run up left out of the fight as you were loading into this, and now you're worried about it. Because if you just go like up and then left, right, by accident, now we're on fraction 64. That's different. Because it's hard to press both up and left at the same exact time, you know? But that time we did it. But, you know, if you do it poorly, you might get stuck on the stairs like this, and then you have to tap R1 to get around. And that's fraction 224. Or you might accidentally get there too early. Now you're on fraction 64, right? So, let's say that happened, right? Where you're like, shit, I need to move diagonally right now, but I need to start moving diagonally. Here's the deal about this game, is that down, up, left, right moves Cloud down, up, left, and right, yeah? However, did you know you can actually use R1 and L1 to offset the angle of the D-pad by 45 degrees? So if you're holding L1, that essentially turns your D-pad 45 degrees left. So now if you go up, he goes up left. And down, he goes down right. And left, he goes down left. Right? It's the same down, up, or up, down, left, right, but at a 45 degree angle to the left. R1 does the same thing, but turning your D-pad 45 degrees right. Up, down, right, left. As opposed to this, which is normal. You see that? And so this is useful for a couple things. Sometimes you're running and you want to add a diagonal, like boom. Instead of like twisting your thumb to add the diagonal, it can be a little bit more precise to have your index finger, boom, press that R1, right? To boom, crank 45 degrees left, you know, or something like that. It can be useful if I need to specifically start running diagonal right now with no frames of up or left accidentally. Like, let's say we're going to go up left. Instead of just trusting myself to hit up left at the same time, that has the potential to accidentally hit just up or just left for one frame before your diagonal. But if you just hold L1, L1 itself doesn't move you, so now you can just hit up, and you know that you're starting off on a diagonal, right? So L1 and R1 are very useful for that kind of thing. Specifically, a spot where I like to use it is I think it can be kind of tough to release a diagonal into a cardinal, right? If you're going up right and then you need to switch to just up, I think releasing a diagonal on the D-pad is specifically something that's kind of imprecise. And so that's the kind of time where you might want to hit R1 or something in order to do better there. So in this case, because I didn't buffer the up left, I'm going to use L1 here and just up to make sure that we only moved up left there. And there you go. So that's just a little movement trick. It can also be used so like, I don't use it for this, but this is another thing that's just weird about this game's movement. On this screen, you might personally think that moving up moves Cloud up right. Because it's the fucking Wild West in this game, what direction you move in when you press a direction. Every single screen is individually coded what the position of the D-pad is. So on this screen, up, down, left, right moves you like this. And so if you're a crazy person, you know, I wouldn't recommend this, but like if you have to, you might just hold L1 on this screen in order to get Cloud to move more like you expect him to. I would not recommend that you do that, but maybe the reason I bring it up is because maybe that's what the developers were thinking when they implemented the L1 R1 mechanic. I don't know. They might think that people wanted to do that or something. What I would suggest is you just play the game a lot and you'll figure it out. At some point, it's second nature. Alright, anyway, let's go. It is now time. So on the particular step route that I'm doing, I showed you earlier that walking for this part avoids the first battle, and that is what this step route does. So the way that we do that is basically the first movement is upright, and then you want to really hug this corner. All of your movement in this game, you should be trying always to minimize the amount of movement. And actually, one thing I should briefly talk about is the tools that I'm using here. So this right here is BizHawk. This is the emulator BizHawk. I really like this emulator for research and practice because it has this thing called RAM Watch, where if we want to look at a certain memory address, it's very easy to find it on RamWatch here. You know, I've got this setup that I always have. We got our offset, step ID, fraction, danger, formation ID. List in stone, we're going to have a wonderful time talking about later. Field XYZ is clouds XYZ coordinates in 3D space. Paralysis is whether or not you have movement of cloud. You know, so paralysis is 0, so we can move. But notice the moment that we get into a cutscene here, paralysis just changed to 1, meaning we can't move cloud right now. So, you know, that's a thing. This is your in-game time. Field ID refers to what field we're in, you know. This is field ID 117. So yeah, BizHawk is really, really nice for this kind of stuff. Here's something fun you can do. We can poke our... Let's go to field 666, shall we? You can just poke field 666 in here and then freeze it, and then go into any transition. Oh my god, it's field 666, except we loaded into a bad spot. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. I'm using BizHawk, and it has a feature called RamWatch, which is very, very useful for research and development, and practice and all that kind of stuff. This that I have here is just gamepadviewer.com, which is, you know, looking at my gamepad here. This is a tool this is a tool developed in Python by Ace Zephyr. He wrote this. It's called Big Shoes. It is very, very good for step routing and understanding step route and all that kind of stuff. You can find Big Shoes. I mean, I think if you Google search Ace Zephyr Big Shoes, you can probably find it. Otherwise, if you go, if you join the Final Fantasy VII Discord, which you can get a link to at speedrun.com/FF7, there should be a link to the Discord there. There is a page called Resources where you can find this as well as many other resources. Those are kind of the tools that we're using here. Otherwise, I've just got notes. And I do all my notes in WordPad. Back to the walkthrough. So you fought the guards, you held circle, and you go up here. Now, you always want to be moving as optimally as possible so that you're not getting into more fights. Even if you're not on a step route, you want to move optimally so that you get into fewer fights, right? So, the movement here is upright to jam cloud, to really squeeze cloud around this corner. You kind of go upright into up, and then once you see that cloud is around the corner, you just hold up left until you're in the cutscene. So that's boom, into up, and then up left. And cloud will just kind of hug the wall all the way into the cutscene there. And there you go. So that should be consistent. Now, let's talk about naming your character. You'll notice in speedruns, we reduce the character's name to as few letters as possible. The reason you do this is because it takes less frames to type out their text boxes, and so it saves frames over the run. So on this screen, you can actually hold X. Like, you might notice that the top runners will, like, I know this is caps, but whatever, that they like hold and then hits and then just, and then, you know, that's from holding X. But it takes a minute, you know, practice it. It takes a minute. It also feels different on emulator than it does on consoles because of display lag, so watch out for that. And input lag and stuff, so watch out for that kind of stuff with all your menuing. But yeah, the reason that we do this is it takes fewer frames to type out the character's name. Every single text box. Look at that. Look at that text box right there. Imagine the frames that we just saved on this text box. So there you go. Oh, and then it's just start to pop over to confirm, circle to confirm. So a lot of the time, it's kind of a double-handed motion where it's like you hold X, start with left hand, circle with right hand. You know what I mean? Just a boom, boom, you know, kind of thing. What I usually do is I kind of try to stop short. He took my move. He stopped short. What I kind of try to do is stop short by one, because that way, if I stop short successfully, then it's one more X. It's just X start circle to get rid of that last character. But if I was a little bit late, then I'm perfect, and it's just the one letter, and then you go, you know. But all right, so now One thing to get good at as far as the movement in this game, and a lot of this has to do with that whole thing about like me talking about how if you're gonna start on a diagonal, it's hard to do that. Most of the time, the easiest way to start on a diagonal is to preemptively buffer the movement, you know? So like, one thing that you will naturally get good at, and I really encourage you to pay attention to, is to buffer your movement into every screen. You don't want to get into a screen and have to look at the screen and go, oh, right, it's this one, and then start on a diagonal. You know what I mean? The more you play the game, the more you'll start to get to the point where you're just buffering up and right already when you get into this room. So this room is up right into up left around that corner, and then here you switch to just left. And now, I actually use R1 here myself. As I'm running left here, just left, I kind of tap R1 until... Do you see this one line of pixels that's slightly brighter? There's like one diagonal row of pixels that's a little lighter. I try to line Cloud up with that and release R when he gets to that. And then that lines him up with... I went a little bit far there, but that lines him up with the door pretty nicely, right? So, in one smooth motion, this is up right, up left, left, R1 tap with the left, and there you go. And now, with that kind of thing, if you bump into the edge a little bit. That was a little sloppy. Right here. If you, like, bump into this corner and Cloud self-corrects, that's just fine. That's kind of good. You kind of like when Cloud bumps into things and, like, corrects, you know? Because it usually means that your movement is kind of optimal. And I think I can better explain why later. But basically, it means you didn't run too much. You know, it means you didn't overrun, and Cloud kind of corrected. Now, let's say you didn't go right enough, though. For me, like, okay, so let's say you only move this much, and oh shit, I bonked, right? I'm holding left like I was supposed to, but I bonked. Now, the easiest way to solve this problem, to me, is that the gap is to Cloud's right, which means the best thing to do is to just tap R1, because if you're going left right now, you can either hang on, I'm just gonna save state this. You can either go up, left, left, and release it like that, which is kind of a really awkward thing to do with your thumb, you know? So to me, it's a little easier to just tap R1, right? And that will achieve that extra little bit of upright right. You know, that'll kind of do that for you really easily. So anyway, next screen, I buffer up left into. And grinding Cloud against things in this game is really good, generally. Like, on this part, instead of running just left and then running just up, to save every little fraction that you can, generally in this game, a good idea is to use up left in order to grind Cloud into this railing, you know? So that he's just grinding against it with an up left motion. And what that will cause is he's actually going to cut this corner just a little bit, you know? And you save a little bit of, just a little bit of movement if you do that. So by grinding him diagonally into the railing, he's going to cut this corner just a little bit, and then you want to go straight up after that. And so the easiest way to go from up left to straight up is to start holding R. So the way I do this room is just buffer up left into it while running, and then as Cloud cuts into that corner, start holding R. Start holding R1. Boom, like that. Alright, and then this room is you just upright straight in. You don't have to talk to Barrett. The cutscene just starts automatically. when you go straight up, or when you go upright. Talk to Biggs here. Talk to Jesse here. Nothing special. This room isn't live. You don't have to worry about your movement here. You could even come down here and grab this Phoenix down from this chest if you wanted. But it's only a Phoenix down, so I don't recommend it. But yeah, so this room, not live. Don't got to worry about it. And then into the elevator. It's kind of a good habit to just buffer up and right all the way into the corner, and you'll see why later. Okay, this is a fun spot. Fractions will affect other things, but because that room is not going to be perfectly precise every time, you just don't have to worry about it. You know what I mean? I'm very picky about the fractions on the first room. That's not live because it affects your ability to get the battle skip if you're going for it. But when you're in a big room like that, it's very difficult to be frame perfect on your movement through it every time. And it's not live. So if that ever happens, if you're ever in a room that is difficult to get through frame perfect and it's not live, whenever that happens, you've essentially shuffled your fractions. And I should have talked about that while we were talking about step count, but we'll get to that. I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so this elevator actually has a funny quirk to it. Let's talk about it real quick. So let's do a quick save state here. Unpause. This elevator actually doesn't go down until it's at the bottom of its animation. So let's say, we get through like this. You'll notice that Barrett walks into Cloud here, and then the next time the elevator gets to the bottom, see, the elevator went all the way up, all the way down, now it goes down. Yeah? Because it only checks if it should go down at the bottom of its animation. And if your mashing is really good here, excuse me, why isn't my turbo working? Hello? Oh, it is. Oh, the turbo just doesn't affect the input display. Right, that makes sense. So if your mashing is really good here, and you did it all just right, then Barrett will walk into Cloud in just enough time to send that elevator down. But if you're at all late, if you're just a few frames too slow, you have to wait for a whole cycle. And that's what we call fast elevator. So I'm gonna try to do it with the actual controller here. This is it's like a frame rule, yeah. This is a Super Nintendo controller though, so it's a little weirder to do mashing on. But there we go. Once you're, it's 4 text boxes, by the way. Once Barrett starts to shake his fist, then you're good, and we got it. Okay, next part. All right, this is nitty gritty, baby. Next movement to get out of this elevator. If you were to just try to run straight left here, you bump into Jessie and you have to wait for Jessie. Did you see that? Did you see the bump into Jessie and then the wait for her? Okay, if you go down left into left, if you go down left for just a couple frames, you can get around her. And so I do this by holding left and L1 and then releasing L1 after a couple frames. So I buffer run left L1 into this screen, and then basically right when I see Cloud start to run, I just release L1. So let's do that now. And did you see how much faster that was? So there you go. There's that. All right, next room. We're on this room now. This room is kind of annoying because you can't buffer down left into it. If you buffer down left into it, you bonk right here. You have to go down into down left to get yourself into here. And then once you're in here, it's pretty free movement. Holding right is good because, again, we're coming up on a corner down here that you want Cloud to go around this corner as quick as possible. So once you're in the stairs, you should start holding only right instead of down right, because that will get Cloud to start going left right away. And then there's this pillar in the way, and I use a short press of L1 to get Cloud around the pillar as well. And I kind of try to line him up with the stairs over here. So it's just to the right, L1 here to kind of line Cloud up, and then on this particular step route, we're about to get a battle. So let's talk about random battles. What do you do in a random battle? So random battles you run away from, but there's a trick to running away a lot of the time. There is a trick. If we just run, this might actually pan out the same, where we might just run after this attack. Okay, we just ran after that attack. That's just fine. If we were to hold left and circle, that holding left and circle queues up a change on each party member, a row change. On this particular battle, it didn't affect it because our ATB was so bad. But sometimes, if your ATB is good enough, sometimes that can actually help you. Okay, so Barrett has really good ATB. If we just hold R and L, they got a turn. And he got a turn. And then we go. So that was pretty bad. Because we were just holding run, but because we weren't doing anything, the enemies got turns. Now, if we were to just fill that time with something, though, we could get a slightly shorter... Like, okay, so let's just say, for example, it is possible... Right. He gets his turn. Maybe right now, our escape is ready to go, but it's not going to happen until after this guy's turn is over. And so it may have been better to get a shorter animation in there. And you can trigger shorter animations by doing lane changes, right? If you hold left and circle, what happens is that guy goes, then Barrett queues up, and then we ran. Did you see that? So here's the perfect example of why you do it. So, I mean, we could even time this, dude. Just holding R and L, and this is the same so this is the same RNG for both because I made the save state after RNG was seeded for the battle, which occurs as the module loads. Oh, okay, I was kind of bad there. 13, and I was almost a little early. If we're lane changing, (9 seconds. So look at that. So the easiest way to implement this strategy, all you have to do is instead of holding L and R to escape, hold LR left and circle. Because buffering that left and circle moves the cursor left to change, and the circle selects it. There you go. That's why you always see runners changing lanes while they are running. You can also do things like queue up an attack instead, you know, because an attack is an even longer animation. The change is nice, though, because it's short. It's just enough of a delay to give you that extra run time, but not enough of a delay to waste time, you know? Yeah, there are times where you don't want to change just because you don't want to front row your party members. Oh, so I didn't really talk about this. So just like before, when you get onto these stairs, there's a corner here, so I hold only left, right, to get around this corner. And then, personally, I just keep only holding left. This part is kind of weird. If you go left, like, this isn't a straight shot to this door. If you go just left, Cloud will fly off to the left. And if you go up left, he'll fly off to the right. So what I do is I just hold left, and then I add R1 about right here to get Cloud into the door. It's kind of weird. No, the game does not remember lane changes coming out of the fights. It is only for that fight. All right. So for this part, you know, just jump over the gap. You can talk to Jessie straight from jumping over the gap. You don't have to run any further to her. And then from here, she jumps from, like, here. But you can actually save movement by grabbing the ladder from, like, right here. Cursor memory does not remember change. That is correct. So you do have to keep left held in if you're gonna if things are bad. So yeah, here this is a great example of just all of the little things you can do to save movement. If you run all the way right and then grab the ladder, we're at step ID 204, fraction 160. But if you just grab it from here instead, like right here, look at that, we saved 2 fractions there. They're probably do even better. Yeah, right there, we saved 3 fractions. So yeah, don't run all the way to the ladder. You can grab it from a little bit further away. And grabbing ladders from far away is actually a really, really common thing that you should like always be doing to save movement. So now, here, down goes down the ladder, which is very convenient because down also goes down right here. So, so you just hold down, and then somewhere along right here, I switch to down right, so that I'm grinding Cloud. Again, there's a corner here, so down right grinds Cloud into this wall, and puts him around the corner. Down right around the corner, but once he starts to make the corner, you switch to just right. And then on this particular step route, we're going to get into a battle right there. So, boom. And then, here, I'm going to queue up an attack on this one. Oh, it was with Barret, though? I thought it was going to be Cloud's turn. Attack animations are quite long. Well, except for Cloud's. Cloud's attack animation is longer than a change, but shorter than, like, Barret's attack. So if Cloud doesn't have a limit break, queuing up a Cloud attack as your time buffer for an escape is quite good. I like to do that a lot, if I can. Once you get going just right on this, I usually switch to down right, so that Cloud then comes off here and is aiming at the ladder. But you get the on this particular route, you get the battle here somewhere. So here's another spot where down moves you, perfectly down the pipe. So at this point, it's just down the ladder, and then screen transition. For this screen, I buffer down left into it, and then, just, again, it's always about just grinding Cloud into that center, and so, like, I buffer down left coming into the room, and then switch to left somewhere around here, and then switch to up left somewhere in here, and then just up somewhere in here. This ladder is actually an auto grab, did I say just left? I meant just up somewhere in here. And then if you just keep holding run and up, he just auto grabs the ladder. Now, this is where, if you're on a step route that takes steps here, I actually just hold down right, down this entire ladder, and I take the steps coming off of the ladder. That's what I do. But basically, the entire movement into the next screen here is down right. You just go down right the entire way into the next screen. So if you're going to take steps, it's a matter of timing your X press is all. So it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. If you're not doing a step route, then you just don't do that. But this one has them there. And then this room is just up. Grab the restore materia, run up into the trigger, and now it is time to get into the next, like, major part of the tutorial.